Fintech Chatter Podcast, brought to you by Tier 1 People, the leaders in executive search for fintech ventures.
Hello and welcome to Fintech Chatter, the podcast show where I connect with fintech leaders for a bit of a chat. I'm your host, Dexter Cousins, and today's guest first appeared back on the show in September 2022. Liam Millward is CEO and co-founder of Instant, a technology company on a mission to power the world's most innovative brands by driving their revenue and retention on autopilot. At the time of appearing last on the show, Liam was the youngest ever guest, having only recently turned 19. I've invited Liam back on the show to share the growth story of Instant and a deeper dive into his learnings as a tech startup leader. But before I chat to Liam, make sure to follow us on your favourite podcast player. And if you're coming back to the show, thanks so much for your support. If you want to go one step further to support us, please consider sharing this episode with your social network. It really helps me elevate Australia's next generation of founders to a global audience. Liam, welcome back.
Great to be here, Dexter. Thanks for having me back on. Excited to chat all things Instant and where we are today. I mean, so much has happened over the past couple of years, right?
Yeah, look, and it's kind of 10% of your life has gone by. I wish only it was a similar amount for me.
I mean, I was last on the show, 19 you said? And
I think you just turned 19, yeah? You were kind of... I think the day we recorded you were 18, and the day we released it you were 19, so...
Right, well, I just got back from a trip to Hawaii. I just had my 21st birthday party, so...
Brilliant.
A lot's happened, but excited.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, really excited to chat. I want to kind of put some context around when you were last on the show. But before we do that, can you remind our listeners about Instant and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you kind of a bit of the story into where we are today. So yeah, we started the company around 2-3 years ago. Now, Instant started as a one-click checkout or an accelerated checkout experience. You can kind of think of us like Shop Pay for the rest of the internet.
Right.
And we worked with brands to help convert their shoppers as soon as they landed on their website. So they didn't need to fill out their personal information, their delivery address, their credit card information, etc. Every time they shopped on that brand or any brand that they visited, we allowed that shopper to have a one-click checkout. Today, we've kind of advanced since then. We grew to $1 million in revenue in our first 6 months of launching that product.
Wow.
Which was crazy. But there was a lot of learnings that came out of that. And we kind of started to think, okay, well, where do we want Instant to actually go long term? And that's where we started to expand our product suite. And so kind of at a high level, Instant works with online brands to increase their revenues through checkout. But primarily our biggest product today is a product called Audiences. And what we do is match your anonymous web traffic and allow a brand to retarget those shoppers after they've left your website and bring them back to you.
Well, it's amazing to hear about the kind of evolution of the business. And I guess one of the kind of challenges for founders, especially when they're entering this space, is there's a lot of noise and kind of, plus investors try to steer you in a certain direction. And the category and space that you're working in, you're kind of obviously going to get comparisons of, oh, look at what Stripe have done. And you get kind of pushed down to this path of becoming a payments business, which then has all of these complexities around regulation, compliance, all of those things that really kind of, I guess, limit the growth of the business in those early stages. What kind of was the spark for you to go, hang on a second, we're not a payments business, we're doing something different?
Yeah, so basically, so for the first 6 months when we'd raised funding, so we'd raised $2 million in pre-seed capital, led by Blackbird. It was the biggest round at the time. It got us super pumped up. We started hiring really smart people. It was kind of this phase where we were succeeding in some areas, but getting absolutely punched in the face in others.
Yeah.
The one thing we were doing incredibly well was building product. Will, my co-founder, is incredible. We onboarded Patrick. He joined us from Uber and moved back from San Francisco to Sydney. And we started building the core product together. And we did that for, 6 months. We got our first 5 or 10 brands. We launched with them. But I think the biggest thing and kind of the biggest shift was we started to realize we were way too product obsessed. Speaking to so many other founders and just businesses today, especially when they're getting started, I feel like this was our biggest mistake. We were too product obsessed. We were building product that no one was using. We were imagining what the customer wanted rather than what they actually needed. And we weren't focused on, actually at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is revenue. Are we building a product that drives revenue for our brands? And are we building product that ultimately drives revenue for Instant? And I actually went with Nikki Shavak, who's one of the founders, partner at Blackbird. And he just simply said to me, he was like, I've got one piece of advice for you, Liam. You really should get some revenue. And that was like the moment where I thought, we actually need to get some revenue. And so we started to become a very revenue obsessed business. We reverse engineered everything. Like, how do we need to get to milestone 1, which is $1 million in annualized revenue. How do we get there in the next 6 months? We need to raise another funding round or we're going to die. We need to actually get revenue on the board or we're going to die. And so I think as soon as we shifted into this mindset of how do we get to $1 million in revenue, our first $1 million revenue milestone, we'll actually achieve it. And so we had Bryce on our sales team. All right, we need X number of deals. Who are those deals or brands going to be? How do we get in touch with them? CEO outreach, or are we doing, going to events? And every single deal, every single day, we would have a pipeline review or a sales meeting to get to that $1 million. And that was definitely the hardest. Yeah, but that was a huge shift that pushed the business to where it is today.
How did you go from, the kind of that mindset to then something that what you've just talked about is so precise, clear, concise, no illusions about, what you're trying to be or what you're trying to do or how you're going to do it. Just like, this is what we got to do. This is how we're going to do it. And I'm asking that because I've had exactly the same experience in dealing with my clients where they've gone through the same process. And it's been really hard even to find highly experienced people with 20, 30 years experience who could articulate that quickly. This is what we need to do. Where did you get, the kind of insights and the tactics from? And what advice have you got for others who might find themselves in the same position?
I think maybe the biggest thing I started to think about was, okay, well, we have a product that customers love. We have a really good team. We have a huge market out there waiting for us. If you look at any business in the world today, the biggest thing that stands out for the most successful businesses is the velocity at which they grow. Everyone's, especially in Australia, everyone's always talking about Canva or Atlassian, XY, they're always just talking about those. And the most impressive thing about those companies is how many customers they have and the velocity at which they grew their revenue and continue to grow their revenue today. And so I very much have the opinion that revenue is the number one indicator of success. It's not the only metric of success, but it's definitely the number one indicator of doing everything else right. You're not going to grow revenue if you haven't figured out demand generation and top of funnel. You're not going to grow revenue if you haven't figured out how to sell to a customer. You're not going to grow revenue if you've got a shit website. You're not going to grow revenue if customers are consistently churning from your product because you haven't built good product. So, we set this metric around, okay, well, what is our number one goal? Some businesses, it's user growth. For us, it's always been revenue. We're a very revenue obsessed company because it's the indicator of success, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so that's then when we went, okay, well, let's get to $1 million in revenue. That's a good milestone. That is kind of the milestone of somewhat of product market fit, particularly if you can get there quickly with very little churn. But then we also just made it also made it very clear then internally to reverse engineer to one thing. How many customers do we need? What are we going to charge them and who are they? Yeah. Rather than being like, oh, well, let's go into the US and let's break into Southeast Asia and let's do this from a product perspective and let's build this feature and let's do this and let's do this. Let's hire this person and let's get this most senior person. So everything we did started to be very focused on $1 million in revenue. Every investor meeting was $1 million. And then I'd say the other thing, Dexter, was we have, and still today, we're at 40 people today, and everyone reports into myself, Brandon, our COO or Will, our CTO. And so we no middle management. Everyone is a very strong executor. And so, for me to make a decision or for Will to make a decision or same with Brandon, that decision is made very, very quickly.
Yeah. One of the questions that I've got for you is, that decision-making process, but I want to flip it to the other side. Sure. One of the biggest challenges, I think, for anybody who's looking to grow revenue is that typically if your customers are corporates, kind of sales cycle can be 12 months, 18 months, 6 months. If you're in a position where you got to do $1 million ARR and you got 6 months to do it, how did you figure out and navigate, that whole kind of what can be a really time-consuming, resource-consuming kind of process where you get all the way to the end and then, you never get you lose the deal because either the decision maker's left, the decision maker was leading you along.
I think there's always the next excuse, right?
Yeah.
If salesperson's failing, well, all of a sudden they want to be the sales manager. If the marketing manager is not doing their job, well, now they want to be the head of marketing. And I think it's the same when you're selling to these enterprise customers. That was probably one of the biggest mistakes we made was, let's go and get the biggest customers because one, they'll have the brand reputation that drives case studies. And two, they will obviously pay us a lot more money than, say, a mid-market or a small customer. That was completely the wrong mindset because enterprise don't want to be sold to without case studies of mid-market, and mid-market generally don't want to be sold to and won't buy your product until you've got some small customers with proven results. It's much harder to move down market and sell to a mid-market brand or a small, mom and dad Shopify store when you have you have your sales process and infrastructure set up into or enterprise than if you just started at the bottom and worked your way up. And so we just started going, okay, well, we've got 6 months. So rather than going, fuck, we've got 6 months and we have these massive enterprise deals and none of them are closing, we just completely changed our mindset to, we've got 6 months, let's figure out how to actually achieve this goal in that 6 month period. And so just flipped it around. And I guess the way that we did that was, we became very clear about the customers that we were chasing. We stripped the team back to being very lean. So it was me and Bryce, who's one of our best salespeople on the team today. And him and I really just kind of went out and started selling, cold calling, emailing, optimizing our messaging every single day. A lot of CEO or founder outreach where made the brand feel really important. We beefed up our case studies. We created really good content and case study videos. We started attending every event, speaking at every event. We kind of made ourselves appear like a really large brand.
Yeah.
Every brand needed to work with. And so all of a sudden, you've got these enterprises actually coming to you. And now we close a brand, every 2 or 3 days, and we never even had to reach out.
I love it. It's exactly the strategy that I've used in my business, right? There's something that struck me with you sharing all of this, right? I've been doing this for 25 years. And I've had access to some of the most brilliant people, not just in my industry, but right across industries. And the maturity, precision, kind of intelligence with which you've tackled this problem, the paradox is that, that is what I would expect from somebody who is more advanced in their career, would have more experience, probably done this, a few times over. But then there's also, if you did have that, you'd probably be second guessing yourself all the way because of the pressure and the fear of it not working. And it's almost as if you've kind of been, you're kind of not being burdened with that. And you've just gone, fuck it, let's just do this. We got 6 months, let's just make it happen. It's almost like it's kind of been the rocket fuel to execute as precisely as you did.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps. I think that there's obviously an element where you don't really, the path ahead, but you don't know what it takes to get there. And so when you don't necessarily know what it takes to get there,
I'm in my 50s now, and I still learn that, right?
And so if you don't know the path to get there or what it takes to get there, I should say, you just keep running until you get there. And so like we do a lot. And I think that one of the things that we do a lot that works to a very core goal. So rather than, let's just make outbound sales work. No, like we are the best at outbound sales, but we are also the best at agency partnerships. We are also the best at customer success. We are the best at product, or that's what we try to be anyway.
Yeah.
And we do a lot. We attend every event. We do a lot. And so perhaps maybe the biggest thing has just been, one, probably not bringing in senior people that get in the way. Or if we do bring in senior people, it's because they're senior and they know how to execute very precisely. I would say the second thing is like staying very close to everything that's going on, particularly the problems in the company. Almost no one kind of directly reports into me in a sense where we're catching up every week and we're going through a very clear, agenda of, all right, update me on every metric. I actually fucking hate data. I hate tech debt data. I hate everything that's process. I just want to know the problem. I want to know the solution to that problem, and we need to fucking execute on solving it.
Yeah.
And there's no way out of just simply hard work. And so just, we're all on the same team. And so creating that environment across the company where I said this in a meeting yesterday. I said, like, we're all on the same team. If you're shit, I'm shit, the company's shit. And so let's just get in and tackle it together. We don't necessarily need the best person. We don't necessarily need the 6-month strategy that it takes to put together. Let's just give it our best shot and get in there and get it done. And I ultimately think that's been a huge execution is just our big spend.
So I don't buy into this narrative, but your generation has garnered a reputation for being maybe a little soft and snowflakes. You don't sound like a snowflake to me, Liam. In fact, you sound kind of pretty brutal, and in terms of, hey, look, here's how it actually just is. We either do it or we don't. How have you been able to, as a leader, get your message across so that people, kind of buy into it or on the journey? And also, how have you dealt with those who, the great saying, kind of what, going from good to great was, who's on the bus and who's off the bus. How have you managed that whole process in we're in an environment where there is nowhere to hide?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard balance. And it's the balance between being too brutal and being too nice.
Yeah.
But there is definitely a balance in there somewhere. No one wants to turn up to work every day where Liam's going, fuck, why didn't we fucking do this? What's happening with this? Why didn't we do this? This customer's saying this. Like, no one wants to turn up to that environment. But just as equally, no A player wants to turn up to an environment where someone is going, great job today. Great job, with that handling that really disappointed customer. I guess we could have done a little better. No, so there's a balance in this. And so I think that people, but there is one thing that people know, and it's the fact that across the team we hire incredibly exceptional people, and you're expected to be exceptional and improve while you're here. We spend a lot of time with people, coaching them or giving them feedback, but just as equally, it's not daycare for adults. And like you at the all hands meeting every week is a very positive meeting. We highlight the positives of the company, and we really highlight particularly our growth. Something we do consistently is compare our revenue growth milestones to the trajectory of Canva, for example, and we try and compete with the speed at which Canva grew, and that gets people inspired. Versus, hey guys, we raised X million dollars in earlier in the year. We never talk about funding rounds. We never talk about things like that. We talk about the performance of the company, and so that people can actually be proud of what they're achieving. But on the flip side to that is that no one turns up to work every day, or no one turns up to the company every day going, I wonder what Liam thinks, or I wonder what this thinks. Because we're very transparent about the good things and our numbers and our runway and our growth. We're just as equally very transparent about the things that aren't working, or someone that's not working, or something that could have been done better. And so very, very straight to the point when it comes to that. But the only way to do that is by staying very close to the team, very close to customers, and very close to, the decisions that are being made consistently. Otherwise, you just seem like the leader that's coming into the room and going, your shit, your shit, your shit, or that shit, that shit, that shit, and then walking away without the solution. You have to be able to provide a solution if you're going to be somewhat direct, I think, anyway.
I guess the other challenge that I see, and I think this is becoming even more difficult than it's ever been, and a lot of it's based on what we've just discussed, particularly around high performance and standards and expectations, as well as the environment and the resources that you have available in an early stage business. How do you identify people who are high performance, high talent, strong execution in an interview process?
That's probably one of the hardest things, right? I would say it's very hard, and I definitely wouldn't say I'm the best at interviewing people, but I've definitely had to become better. I like to get to know people kind of a bit more of a personal level when I meet with them. And so very much like, someone has had to have something hard happen in their life for them to be good. Not always, and a lot of the times not. But the very best performers have had something hard happen in their life to date. And I won't give an example on that because I don't want to offend anyone, but I think that you can kind of get what I mean. And so when someone's had something hard happen in their life, whether it's the way that they've grown up or where they've lived, or, they've maybe moved, they've done something hard, they've moved overseas, or they've moved away, they have this ability to just be very mentally strong. And I think being mentally strong is one of the most important things in a company, specifically a startup. You're consistently being told that something needs to be better. We're consistently needing to redo things over and over again. We're consistently listening to customers that want more, want more, want more. There's the consistent internal battle between, well, is this a product priority or is this a product priority? Actually, both are a priority and we need to get them done in the next week. So, holy shit, let's get it done. So being very mentally strong, I think, is big. And then I would say the other things are like, you have to have the ability to come straight into a company and be an immediate executor. And what I mean by this is, if you go and join Stripe or one of these larger companies as a sales hire, you've kind of got this expectation where you've got like a 6-month ramp up period. We're going to kind of be daycare for adults for a little bit and learn what to do. You start at Instant, and we give you, day one is kind of learn everything that's going on. Day two, you're straight into it. You're expected to book your first meeting in the first week, and the record is 2 or 3 days in, and that gets people really energized. People feel motivated and energized by the end of the week, and they're just so excited when you let the best people execute straight away. Bringing someone.
It's interesting you share that. There's a couple of things that I think kind of really resonate with me. So first is what you've got around expectations. I'm like 25 years into the recruitment industry now, and as bad a reputation that it has, it actually is an incredible place for anybody who wants to go and understand and learn about what it really is like to run a business.
Sure.
Because in that environment, like if you haven't made your first deal in the first 3 months, you're out the door, right? Like it's just the reality.
Yeah.
And, kind of I've been in environments, and I think the fastest was, first 2 weeks, I got the first deal out the door, right? And that I've always been fortunate to work with some of the best people in the industry, some of the, not just the best businesses, but best groups of people where you had that level of competition. And sometimes it's great, and other times it can get a bit toxic. But at the end of the day, what I've always had is just that high performance kind of culture and that expectation.
I think a big thing is you need to be able to share. You need to be able to paint the path towards something that's exciting. It can't just be this culture every day of like competitiveness and high performance if there's nothing at the end of the tunnel. I think this is something that, say, Elon does really well, where if you look at so many other rocket companies in the world outside of SpaceX, it's, their mission is to launch rockets. Elon's mission is to go to Mars. And so he has this ability to be a bit more direct than other people because he's painted this vision that is so inspiring, so so aspirational that people really get behind.
Yeah.
And so when we're really direct with people across the team, or, you know, you're getting people really energized and pump up about the things you want to work on, it's because there's something exciting there. And so that's something I really prioritize a lot is, all right, well, we want a competitive sales team, but we have to celebrate the wins. Like, let's celebrate the wins. Let's give people an incredible incentive program. Let's go out as a team. Let's meet up with our customers. Let's rally behind the new starters that have closed their first deal. You know, product and engineering launched something that's incredible. Like, let's fucking rally behind it. And let's let that person, like, that was their baby. They built that from the ground up. From basically, that was just an idea.
Yeah.
And so really, as I said before, it's easy for that to turn into like a toxic culture. And I think it does in so many companies.
Oh, look, and if I look at when things turn toxic, you know, one point was GFC, where, you know, similar environment to what we've had the last couple of years. And it was, you know, the kind of environment went from like we're all flying to then it was like the Big Brother house, who's going to get made redundant next, right? And it's kind of sets this thing of fear where you just, yeah, everybody's fighting after the scraps, and it's a fight for survival. And I think that's kind of, you know, obviously one of the challenges that, particularly for a lot of businesses in a similar stage to yours, is, you know, their fight for survival is on where can we get funding, not where can we generate revenue. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why you're seeing this kind of positive reaction to the strategy and the kind of momentum that you're getting as a result. Is you're not chasing after an investor begging for money. You're creating value for your customers, and that's the flywheel, right? Like, raising the capital is just the one, like raising the capital is an event, right? And once it happens, it's like, oh shit, now we've got to do all of this stuff. You're doing all of that stuff and it's generating a revenue there, where if you're going to raise capital now, the people who want to give it to you and the terms that they're offering, you're probably thinking, fuck that. Like, we're doing just fine without it, right? Like, we don't need that, right? We'll wait until there's a better time where the conditions are more favorable, and we get something that's, you know, it's a deal that works for everybody, not something where we're being bent over a barrel. And I think that's, sorry, you go.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the biggest thing is, as a company, you need to achieve the goals that you set out. That's what gets anyone so excited about what you're doing. Yeah. And so, you know, for us, like we went from $0 to $1 million in revenue in our first 6 months. And then by Q1, we grew by another $1 million. By Q2, we're growing by $1 million a month in revenue. And by Q3, we're growing by $2 million a month in revenue. That's what gets a team excited. That's what gets investors excited. You know, when you shape that around, okay, well, we really need to do better with outbound sales. They see why. Or we really need to do better with onboarding customers. They get people get energized around, well, fuck yeah, let's actually get better with onboarding customers so we can be onboarding $3 million a month in revenue.
Yeah.
And all right, let's enter the US. Yes, let's enter the US so we can grow by even more. And when you paint that kind of vision behind, you know, for us today, we're kind of on this journey of how do we start to be such a critical part of a merchant's business? We want to own like 20 to 30% of their revenue. We want to be accountable to 20 to 30% of their revenue as a brand. And that's why, you know, when Afterpay first started, for example, that was so important for a business, no matter how much they charged, 6% in some cases, because they were so much of their business. And so for us, we start to paint this picture internally with the team where, God, let's build cool shit where we're like, we are driving 20 to 30% of a merchant's business.
Yeah.
That is insane. That is one of the biggest companies in e-commerce to exist, and people rally behind that. The other thing that's really important, I think, and something that we've done really well, is you have to make the right decisions. You can't consistently make the wrong decisions. You have to make decisions very quickly, but you also just as equally have to back those decisions. And so we made this pivot, and I think that you'll come to it in a minute, is we made this pivot from checkout and primarily focusing on instant checkout to being very focused on our new product called Instant Audiences. And Audiences has grown from $0 in revenue in January to we're just about to hit 7 million revenue with that product alone.
Wow.
Like 10 months later.
Yeah.
And that was a very important decision. And you start to get a bit of pushback across the team where salespeople are very comfortable selling checkout, and all of your marketing is on checkout. And I just woke up one day and went, this was a Wednesday or a Thursday. I said, right, by Monday, we're making this pivot. We had a company-wide meeting. Monday, no one knew it was coming. We made a whole pivot. And I just saw the opportunity, and that was what drove such significance. So it's very important to actually make the right decisions as well.
So I want to kind of touch on that, because you're right. We were going to cover this massive kind of blow-ups. I guess the only way you can describe it, right, in the space that you operate in Bolt and Fast. Was that kind of part of this decision-making process for your pivot? Or because I would have assumed there was a massive market to go out with them no longer around.
Oh, definitely not. We don't care about competitors at all, and we hardly ever, we never come up against competitors really. We never really speak about competitors. It's not even in our onboarding for new staff to talk about competitors, to be honest. We don't give a fuck about competitors. And if a competitor comes along, we immediately just start thinking, okay, well, how do we beat them? But what it really did was we positioned those two businesses in a way where it just like lit this massive fire under us. We can't be the next Bolt. We can't be the next Fast, and we definitely can't be the third failure in that space. Yeah. And so it forced us to, like, sure, we can make mistakes, and sure, we can fail at particular projects, but failing as a company is not an option. And we built, if you think about checkout as a product, our core value proposition was being able to remember a shopper every single time they came back to your website. We built this technology behind the scenes that allows us to do that without cookies. We can remember a shopper indefinitely, and that was the core value. So Will and I sat at a cafe one day, and we're like, fuck, we really need, we're going to make checkout work. We're going to get it to $1 million in revenue. But what is like option 2? What is path B in case checkout doesn't work? And it obviously ended up in the case that both products are incredible today, and been very fortunate. But what we did was we saw the core value proposition that we'd built with checkout of being able to remember that core shopper every single time they came back. And we thought, well, what if we can help a brand remember that shopper every single time they come back to your website? And instead of giving them a checkout experience, let's allow that brand to retarget that shopper on email or social, etc., through advertising. Let's go into the MarTech space. And I mean, that product's been a huge hit.
Now, I want to talk about something else that I know that you're passionate about, and it actually ties into what we were talking about with hiring. You kind of, I guess this isn't your first rodeo. You previously had a travel blog, which was a really successful, I guess, startup business as well. What's your whole kind of, I guess, looking at your travel experiences, right? How much do you kind of see them having helped you be the person that you are today? Because look, we can't get behind you. We can't ignore your age, right? Like, I think it's absolutely unbelievable that I'm talking to somebody who's 21 and I'm having this conversation with them. It's fairly unique, right? How have you seen your own journey, and what do you think have been the influences that have turned you into the person that you are today?
I had an incredible, growing up. No one in my family, though, is in business. Both of my parents were police officers, and, we were very, very much just like a middle-class family. We definitely weren't, we definitely weren't struggling to get by, but, we definitely weren't wealthy either. We were just a normal family, continue to be today. But I definitely had a good childhood. And, my parents, I got my first computer when I was very young, and I started mucking around on that, and then I got my next computer, and I was never really into things like gaming. I would always just do other things. And then we went traveling around the world for 4 years, and that was based on my parents had left the police. They hated primary school, and we went traveling for 4 years. And we basically went everywhere. We traveled hotel to hotel, in the caravan around Australia. I've been everywhere in Australia, very fortunate of that. And I think that was definitely a very big part of who I am today, very close to my family. But I think one of the biggest things and one of the biggest reasons it drove so much value is maybe not for the travel, maybe for the fact that if you look at so many young people today, they get so trapped down in the competitiveness of high school and the fake relationships of high school and everything to do with that. And so they lose sight on, going after things that are really ambitious. And then all of a sudden they're taking the gap year and then they're off to uni with all their friends. And so you just kind of go into this spiral, and all of a sudden you're 25, 26 going, oh shit, this is not actually what I want to do. Or shit, this is actually have this really awesome idea that I want to go and do, but now it's too late. Now I've moved out. Now I've in a serious relationship. Now I'm having kids. Now I'm doing and it gets really hard. And that's obviously not an excuse. And so many incredible people do it later and later in their career. Most people actually. But I think that travel was definitely a big part. But in saying that, I don't think that the business that we've built today between Will and myself and our team, or, but whether it's the product that we've built or the revenue that we've chased or the money that we've raised, we've done a lot of that stuff now. I don't think any of it is accidental. I don't think any of it is because of, a silver bullet, or something that I ate when I was a child.
Yeah.
I think it simply comes through hard work, very clear, determination to succeed. I think I very much thrive on definitely not wanting to fail, definitely not wanting to be seen like a failure, and definitely wanting to build the biggest company to exist. It's for now, we are, how do we get to $1 billion valuation in the next 24 months?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think there's a few things, but I honestly think that anyone can do what we've done if they really put their head down and do it.
What I'm really curious about, Liam, you talked there about your family and the travel. Where did the spark or the inspiration come for you to, and I'm taking on board here what you just said about the competitive nature of high school. My daughter's in her first year of high school. She's at a selective school. She's kind of gone from being top dog in primary school to now kind of right in the middle of the road. And all of those things that you're talking about as a parent, I'm trying to navigate and guide. So this isn't necessarily me asking for advice, but I'm just really curious as to kind of understand where you got the spark and the inspiration to go, you know what, I'm setting my sights higher. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to build the world's most successful business, because that's something bold. Again, you would assume that somebody had a parent or a friend or somebody who'd kind of inspired them and kind of shown them that path previously.
I'm not sure, and I'm definitely not the most inspirational or the perfect person at building a company. I think the biggest thing and the start for me was probably starting the travel magazine when we were traveling. And if I think back now, the biggest reason I started that was I wanted to earn some pocket money. I wanted my first job. There was no way to get my first job because we were consistently moving. I couldn't go and work at McDonald's or something because I'd be at a new McDonald's every day. Yeah. But I did want to make money. And so I had to create my own way to make money. And the best option for that was online. And so that's when I started the travel magazine. And originally we were just sharing our travels on social media and through the magazine. And then it grew to paying people to travel and write in the magazine. And then it grew to, getting more and more advertisers. And then all of a sudden, you've got a magazine that's 50,000 readers and generating tens of thousands of dollars in revenue very quickly. And so then I thought, well, fuck, if I can do this with the magazine, what is next for me to work? That's a lot more ambitious. And so I love I consistently explain, it's just I love the journey of opening up the next gate, opening up the next business. You start with an idea and then it's holy shit, I need to find my co-founder. You open up gate 1 and find your co-founder. It's oh my God, we actually need some money, and we open up gate 2 and get some angel capital. And then it's who do we hire? And then it's okay, launch our first product. And so you just consistently opening up these new gates. And I love the journey of that.
Yeah. So what move spending time in New York then, has that been another gate opening for you?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in New York this year. We're really trying to make it our biggest market. We grow exceptionally quickly here in Australia. Basically doubling the business, if not more, every quarter, every 90 days. And so it's well, if we can do that here in Australia, what if we can crack the US? So planning to spend a lot more consistent time there. I'm kind of in and out a little bit at the moment. I was in LA for 30 hours last week speaking at an event. but we got 20 brands out of that event.
Brilliant.
And that's quite a significant amount of revenue for us. So New York is I'm very excited about our market there. And the way that we're really thinking about cracking that is we just need to do a lot. We need to poach out our competitors' most valuable people. We need to have the best brand. We need to be at every event. We need to outpace from a product perspective. We need to have very clear revenue objectives. We need to have the best people on the team. And we've got to be there in person together to achieve it. And so, planning to spend a lot more time there. And I think the biggest thing that's different about the US is the velocity at which they operate.
Yeah.
And I definitely think we have that same velocity here in Australia, the competitiveness, the velocity, the speed. And so, I always get
Do you think that's a cultural thing, or do you think we just need to have more businesses like yours to kind of put some heat and pressure on?
Heat and pressure, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So before we wrap up,
I think there are incredible people here in Australia.
Yeah, look, I agree with it. I think we
no one's going to do their best work if they don't need to.
My biggest bugbear is they keep talking about this brain drain and where's all the talent. And I say, look, you got some of the best talent in the world, right? Like I've always kind of put the question back and said, hey, maybe the talent shortage is internal and it's leadership, right? And my first observation,
people want to join a company that's exciting, that's inspiring, where they can actually come and execute, where they're not just being told what to do every day. They can actually, paint their own picture.
And I think it's kind of, and you want clarity from a leader, right? And an element of forthrightness, but also an element of empathy, right? And kind of understanding, right? And kind of, people have to develop those skills. And I think my biggest observation when I first moved to Australia in 2004, somebody asked me, what's the biggest difference in the talent market between Australia and the UK? And I said, in the UK, you got a lot more leaders. In Australia, you got a lot more managers. And I think that's kind of, you see that transferred through to now in the startup space, where literally you've only got 10% of the talent market who's actually cut out or has the desire to work in a business of your stage where they're going to be make an impact and be successful. 9 out of 10 people are going to leave in the first 6 months, right? And it's like, you got to figure out what those qualities are that make somebody there. And as a leader, you have to, it's pointless going, we need people with these qualities. You have to look in the mirror first and say, have I got these qualities? What do I need to work on? Who do I need to become?
It's not even managing the people, in my opinion.
Right? It's like managing the scenario, the situation that you're in. And that's what leadership is, right?
It's not managing. Incredible.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Incredible together. We don't need the head of people and the chief vibe officer, and let's just hire
exactly right.
People. Let's work on some really ambitious things, and let's celebrate it.
Yeah, and when you do that, you don't have to delegate either, right? Because people go, I've got that. Don't worry, right? It's happening, right? So I think that's kind of, that to me is the greatest, I think, challenge that we have here in Oz is which leads to my next question, which is how do we support this next generation of founders? In your eyes, what are the things that you think would kind of help to, one, encourage this next generation and your generation to take this leap that you've done, but also, like, what are the things that kind of, if you could go and do your time again, hey, if I just had this when I was starting out, or if I just, kind of had this at school, when I was at primary school, like, what the thing that would have got me interested and kind of happy there. Is there anything that kind of you think that we could do better?
I think it's very interesting. People always ask me, would you recommend starting a business? What's it like starting a business? What's it like starting a company? Would you recommend starting a company? And my answer is always no, I don't recommend it at all.
Yeah.
I think I might have even said that last time on the podcast when I was here 2 years ago. I wouldn't recommend it at all. Actually, in fact, majority of the time is the most, you are under the most pressure. You're working on the most stressful things. And yes, it is. But on the flip side to that, it's one of the most fulfilling, ambitious, crazy, exciting things you could ever do. And so if you're willing to go against kind of what almost every business leader says today, definitely don't start a company. And you're willing to go against that and start your own company, you are the right person. And and you should just go and do it. I don't know. I really love the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. I think that changed my mindset significantly. And it's almost the only book that I've ever read.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if there's another course or another university lecture or what a teacher's going to say in high school is going to get you out there. I think you just got to go and fucking do it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Or I think go and work for an incredible leader for a couple of years. You know, like go and work for Tim at Eucalyptus and see how they have grown such a machine, for example. Go and work for one of these, you know, incredible startup companies. Come and work for Instant. Come and work for a company that is growing exceptionally quickly. Don't go and join a mediocre company. People go and join these mediocre or really large companies, and they think that that's how it's done, and it corrupts them. So go and join a company that is rapidly growing by millions of dollars in revenue every single month, building incredible product and has incredible people. And you'll be inspired very, very quickly.
Yeah. On that, we get some amazing talent listening to this podcast. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people listening right now who are like, wow, where can people find out more about careers at Instant?
Well, if you're an exceptional executor and you'd love to join we literally are one of the fastest growing companies in this country right now for our stage. You can reach out to me or Imogen in our talent team or on our website as well.
Brilliant. And where can people find out more about the Instant product?
I think our website's probably the best place. We have so many pages on the website and case studies and etc. So take a look there.
Well, Liam, congrats. Thanks for joining me today. I'm just, I was blown away when we did the first podcast, but I am super, 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 super blown away. What you've achieved in this last two years. It's like phenomenal. I don't care what level of experience you've got, what age you are, how much capital you've got behind you. For you and the team to have achieved and done what you've done is just totally exceptional. And mate, I feel so energized having spent this last 50 odd minutes with you.
Thanks so much for having me on.
As always, folks, you can follow me on LinkedIn. If you're new to the show, make sure you follow us on your favorite podcast player. And if you're coming back, thanks so much for your support. It really does mean a lot to me. If you're feeling extra generous, please share this episode on your socials. It really helps me elevate great founders like Liam and great Aussie companies like Instant to a global audience. We're listened to in over 40 countries. Until the next episode, keep well.